Rolling Through the Tundra with Benjamin Boyce. The upside down, backward, forward mechanism of Benjamin Boyce. And we're going to mute Benjamin Boyce in the corner, and we're going to wait for somebody to say something. It's telling me to say something. I'm putting words together. You know what? If I was really a professional at this, I would plan things. Don't you think I would plan things? I would plan things. I'm getting a little confused because one thing's saying for waiting. We're probably recording. I should just, hey, Ben Newman, you want to ask me a question or answer a question? Tell me a question that you would like me to ask you that you can answer. Oh, that you're comfortable answering to a bunch of strangers. Oh, man. All right, Himdall. Good evening, man. Just know that I have this filter on, so the cuss words don't. I have to do these things to press the button so your comment gets seen. And another thing is, I'm seeing that I am very choppy. Am I very choppy for you? And we're also we're delayed and stuff. I probably shouldn't let myself watch me. I just want to make sure that I'm not being really choppy. I live you, Mang, as well. Himdall's Gate. How long do you give it until Gurji is unemployed? Oh, poor Gurji. Poor Gurji. I'm not at liberty to say what I think exactly about that because I'm still trying to get on the good side of some people that can actually tell me about the internal politics of Evergreen, but that'll probably never happen. I should probably just freaking transcribe all this video and put it out there and then assemble for the either people, what exactly it is that happened on a point-by-point basis. Michael, will we start off playing? Ask me, what did I have for dinner? Oh, no. Do I really want to ask that? What did you have for dinner? Ben Newman, did you answer me? Hey, man, great show. Watch all the time. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Ben. I will. I'm one of my really best friends. He said, you'd be really great. You'd be really, really great in this thing that I like to do called writing. I'd be really great at writing if I just get over myself and get rid of myself. And that's a consistent problem that I've had. With this whole life situation is getting over myself, getting past myself. That self thing keeps on interrupting me. And then I get all wallowy and stuff. And then I start feeding on very nice people such as you and other people too. Boost me up. Ashel Smith, stop being anti-gun. I only shot guns once in the last few years. And we got some great drone footage of that event, but I'm not allowed to publish it. But it's pretty cool drone footage of a gunning event. If you don't want to be a stinker, use your blinker. All right, Mike Jenkins, listening to Bob Marley, Rastaman Vibration, Evert Ting, Irie Benjahome. I like this. I think we should all just mess around with the grammatarians, the grammar Nazis. He asked for questions. Himdall's Gate. I think the self thing gets us all, my friend. I think it gets us all. I think we're all just a wishy-wash of selfness, just splattering each other with our selfie goos. That's what we end up doing all the time. And then what happens next is that there's more selves splashing each other with selfie goos. I think it's the process of history. History is just a bunch of splishy grooves that are getting in our way of selves. Well, but why else are we here if not to experience what it is to be a self? That's what I want to know. If we've been given this self, what is the self good for? I mean, if the self was constructed by reality and in order for a self to experience reality, then how is the self supposed to get over the self in order to experience reality if reality designed the self to experience reality through the self? Maybe that's just the self talking. I don't know. But it's a good question. I mean, it's like a little like this little, okay, so there's this wall. This is what I think. There's this wall, right, between you and that, right, and the other. And then the self is like this little spigot of interaction. And sometimes there's a lot of pressure on the inside, goes through the self into the outside. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure on the outside that goes through that self into the inside. And the self is this like transaction diode through which reality, the pressures of whatever it is that we're immersed in, are going back and forth through. That's what I think. I don't know what Ocasio-Cortez is, my friend, Himdallsgate. I don't know. I'm not going to look it up. Zach Fritz, what do I do in my free time? Zach, what do I do in my free time? I'm going to move the chat stream over here so I don't give myself crank neck or whatever that thing happens. That is the same thing that happens to a wrist when it types too long, except for a neck when it swivels too hard. What was the question again? What do I think of our, do I have any free time? What I do on my free time is I make videos, or I worry about making videos, or I think about what video I should be making, or I don't do anything. I'm like, oh shit, what am I doing? 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 What do I do in my free time? Me and my girlfriend, lady friend, special person who sleeps in the bed. We are going through the Marvel universe. You know, we're like skipping around the Marvel universe movies, right? And she likes Thor the most. And, you know, you go back through it and you find a favorite character and you're like, yeah, my character's like kind of underrepresented, you know, because there's so many characters. You just want to focus on one character. She really likes Thor. I like Thor a lot. He's the most attractive character for my attention to run along with, because he's got the great balance of heroic and humoric, and plus he's a god. I mean, who doesn't like a god, right? I mean, there's some gods that'll really fuck you up, you know, but like there's something special about a god that just makes you like the god, you know. I don't know what Sam Harris would think about that, but I know Jordan Peterson would probably agree with me. I mean, even the evil gods, there's something really attractive about them. You know, it's like you're looking into the abyss is looking into you. And even then, the self is overjoyed because at least the abyss is recognizing you, saying, yeah, you are. Now let me help you not. Right. I'm going to go back to this chat thing. I have nothing to say, so I'm just babbling. Greg Hamilton, in the recording you posted of Brett. Okay, guys, one thing. Brett only has one T. One T. One T. And it's probably autocorrect that's forcing everybody in the world to put two T's there. And I don't know why he only has one T. I don't. But Greg Hamilton asked, in the recording you posted of Brett talking to the angry, thoughtless kids, I don't know, were they more angry or more thoughtless? That's a good question. That's a good question. I would like to talk about that audio. That would be good. I have the transcript. I'm going to finish this comment, but I have the transcript. There's some pretty interesting things if you actually listen to what they're saying. Anyways, Greg Hamilton, in the recording you posted of Brett talking to the angry, thoughtless kids, who was the woman with him? Sounded like Heather, but also sounded like not Heather. If there was somebody who was defending him, it's somebody that I'm going to keep anonymous, because I have convinced a lot of people that I am worth their trust to give me certain special recordings that are not open for wide distribution. So it's highly likely that if I didn't name somebody, I can't name somebody. Now, I also didn't name the students, but it's actually, I'm wrestling with this, and I think I'm not going to do this, but there's certain key protesters that are going through all the footage, and it's kind of like, why not do it? But like, there's some reasons not to. I want to kind of just piece together each individual person's plot arc, figure out who they are, and then investigate what they were studying, and kind of like try to show the individual's journey through this like chaotic mess of streaming selfhood, you know, of spattering each other with denial of selfhood, denial of humanness. That's the other thing about this whole evergreen thing, like the sheer denial of humanity, both in our own actions and in the ability of other people, just the reducing of each other to bodies. That's why I hate this word bodies that people use. Zach Fritz, do you do anything in your free time? I think I went off on that. All right. We're going up to Michael. Why not typically normal? I had a breakfast food, pancakes for dinner. You know what? In this house, we love breakfast for dinner. We love it, except for the coffee part. That doesn't happen at night here, because we also like sleeping. So, you know, we have coffee for breakfast usually. We don't have breakfast for breakfast. We just have coffee. Should I go up here? How does the Evergreen docu, Mike Jenkins? It's going good. The thing is that I need a couple. For the Evergreen documentary. I think I've repeated this several times by now. I need some interviews. I need interviews. I really want to make it a primary document. So I'm waiting on some key interviews for people who actually know the timeline. And I just want it illustrated or narrated by people who live through the timeline and what happened with the timeline. Because basically the first thing to construct for the Evergreen documentary is everything from May 14th, which is the day where allegedly 2 black men were detained, which is one black man who was asked and given, it was totally voluntary for him to give a statement in a room privately with another cop. But anyways, from that 14th through the week of the Evergreen protesters designing the protest. Then there was a meeting with George that the protesters' allies tried to boycott, and I have the audio for that. And there's something actually pretty amazing that happens in this meeting on the Friday before the week of the protests, where to all intents and purposes, this mature or older black student stands up and talks about how students are really filled with anger, and what they need is a mature voice. They really need a mature guiding hand to tell them that, yeah, the world is screwed up, but there's ways to interact with the world that are actually going to benefit you and the world. And there's ways that are going to do the opposite. And that would, I don't know who that person was. That would be great to get an interview with them, because a lot of people commenting, and this is the kind of thing about the Evergreen story that I'm kind of getting sick of, is that people are using it to fuel their racial hatred. And you know what? Whatever. If you guys want to be racist, I don't think that's right. I actually think it's a really low way of viewing the world, reducing people to categories like that. But you know, I get tired of people saying the same old comments and pinning the behavior on the students and pinning the behavior on the students' race, when it was basically the failure of the Washington education system. That's what it was. What Evergreen was the failure, the abject failure of the Washington education system from K through adulthood. That is what it was. It has really little to do with actual race. I believe that. So I get a little bogged down, like, oh, if I publish another video, it's like going to be another reason for people to despise other people, when it should be viewed. I would like to have you view it, but I cannot control how you interpret things. I would like it to be viewed as the failure of an institution to actually train people to act and behave in a certain way. And by institution, I mean the whole institution. And yeah, we could probably get into questions about parenthood. I'm going to tune out of me and tune in, drop out, who wrote, University of Minnesota moles firing professors who use the wrong gender pronouns. Have you heard about this? And do I have an opinion? Gender pronouns, man, that is a steep one. That is a really steep cliff. And I do have an opinion on that. I do understand that there's a certain amount of social pressure for me to not speak aloud my opinion on that. And my opinion is informed by my own experience of the world and my own experience of human beings. And my own experience of human beings is that most human beings are either female or male. And by that, I do not mean bodies. I mean by the person that I'm talking to is either male or female, right? Basically. And then there's different sorts of, there's a spectrum there. And there's a very narrow asexual level that I've experienced. I've talked to people who are usually they're men, but they achieve this non-masculinity, or they are endowed with a non-masculinity while still contained in a man form, and they have a special status. I recognize that there's a special status for a very narrow subset of human beings, and I respect that human being as they're developed. But for most of my experience with human beings, it's that this is a woman or this is a man, and maybe this is something that is going to go the way of the dodo. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I organize my behavior towards somebody depending on if they're male or female. I organize my behavior based on that. And maybe I treat one sex better than the other sex. I certainly do. I'm generally more interested in females than in males to begin with. And then when I get comfortable with a male, I can, if I get along and I scope out the territory of the interaction I'm having with a male, then I can start to develop a friendship that tends to be a little bit more deeper because it syncs up with my being. But it's very few men who I get to that level of. And it's easier for me to relate to women. But with regards to the whole gender pronouns, I see it's a sign of respect for me to use the proper gender pronoun for somebody. And the Peterson route, or the whole question about whether we should do away with gender, I think that, yeah, sure, let's ask it. And I'm going to say, no, I don't think we should do away with gender. I think it's a very important aspect of being a self. The self is spun in a certain way, and certain selves are not spun in the way that they are contained. That is true. I will say that. I don't have a problem saying with that. I know people like that. And actually I care a lot about these people. And so I can respect that, but they're still basically either a male or a female. Right. So this whole non-gender thing, or even going so far as to say, let's let little kids who's that part of the brain that's up here. I'm going through this science textbook by Robert Sapolsky. It's on my brain development, and young people's brain, that cortex, that frontal cortex, is not developed until you're in your 20s. And one of the things that the frontal cortex does is inhibits you and makes you more critical of behavior, makes you more skeptical. So when you don't have that, you're very keyed into what other people think. So you're going to have, once you implement this ambiguity into a developing brain to say you don't have to be one way or the other, it's going to cause them, and this is me, and there are exceptions, but it's going to cause a lot of people to misgender themselves and to get stuck in this whole way of trying to rejigger nature, or even to defy nature, or even to be scared of nature. And puberty is already a very scary thing. So I don't know. I don't know if a government institution has the right to enforce my behavior on somebody else, or enforce my beliefs on somebody else. That's the thing. Kind of being pretty libertarian, I'm like, well, I don't want to tell you what to do, but I worry about it. I worry about it, and I wonder if it's not a sign of our country just being concerned with things that don't really matter, because ultimately, somebody going through the process of changing the way that other people behave towards them is going to spend a lot of time not dealing with getting to a place where they can really do something awesome with their lives. Now, if the awesome thing that they need to do with their lives stands on the other side of them switching genders or changing genders, then I understand that. But there's a big cost in that. There's a big cost in that. Anyhow, so I'm going to scroll through and see how many people I pissed off. You guys aren't even listening to me. You're talking about guns, germs, and steel, and IQ. And I can't go through and reread all these comments. So I'm just going to wait for somebody else to say something. Hey, James. I appreciate your identities, whether they be in real life or online. Harley Moab. You're still talking about something that I don't know what you're talking about, because I entered in the conversation while I was having a conversation with myself, apparently. Zach Fritz says, I don't think people at Evergreen are low IQ folks. They certainly aren't the brightest bunch, but they clearly are at least partially capable of thinking. They just don't like to. Okay. Well, the Evergreen protest is a very specific situation that was specifically designed, probably not intentionally, but it was designed to shut people's brains off. What we see happening during the Evergreen protests is people's brains being shut off, and they're acting purely on instinct, and they're just using the words that they have at hand to defend and to institute their agenda. I really don't think people are specifically acting with their brains being employed. Now, whether that has to do, I think it has to do with certain factors, which the documentary will go into after we get through that week of protests, from the 14th through the week of protests, and then probably up to the Patriot Prayer Rally, and then we'll start going through the emails and stuff like that. But I think that the students at Evergreen were enabled to enter into a situation where their brains were shut off, and they entered into what I think of as a holographic delusion. And if I was an awesome person, I would be able to write a paper about this. The holographic delusion. What I think happened was that everybody had a piece of the story that replicated everybody else's piece of the story. And they didn't even have to, for that very short period of time, those people were more in sync with other people than they'll probably ever be. I mean, it was like this massive orgasm. I mean, it was a hateful orgasm, but it was this massive linking, this mutual orgasm. Everybody was in this blissful moment and replicating what everybody else was thinking. So a lot of the inability to recognize reality was because they were connected to something that was a much greater reality for them in that moment, on the level of a psychological reality. They were all like melded into one thing. That's what I think. I think that I don't know whether or not they're specifically low IQ or not. It doesn't even matter, because I think that probably there was a couple of very, very, very smart people that were swept up into that. I mean, being smart is no defense. It's no defense from what happened at Evergreen. The only defense from that happening at Evergreen is skepticism, which isn't necessarily tied to intelligence. It's doubt, or it's hesitation, maybe, or patience, which, yeah, okay, it's more of a wisdom thing than just a crunching number thing. Anyways, Himdall's Gate. What do you make of Eric Weinstein's argument for a new pronoun for intersex? I think he makes a good case. Also, medical form, need to know if you're inter. Okay, so intersex is different than transgender. I don't want to get out on a limb with this, because I want to actually make connections with people who are in the trans community, so that I can actually, in an honest, good faith fashion, actually allow trans people from a variety of perspectives to kind of like share what's going on. And so I don't really want to mess up or too heavily load my own opinion on that issue. I think it's an important issue for us to reckon with, but I think what the activists do is, maybe it's good in the short term to act like ass hats, activists, ass hats, acta-asses. I don't know. Like, I'm thinking specifically of the Laurier people. Maybe it's a good thing in the short run for these people to act all tyrannical and stuff on behalf of other people that didn't elect them, the trans community, because it simply just brings attention to the trans issue, and it gets us over it gets a large portion of people over their knee-jerk reaction to people who do not fit in that category. I think that male-female category is very deeply ingrained. That's why I think it's something that we need to respect. That's why I think gender pronouns are important. But there's people who don't fit in that category, who have a very hard time with their life because they don't fit in that category. The activists come around, they swoop in, they make this big authoritarian stank. Everybody's like, screw you, and then the dust settles eventually. And then there's just the actual trans people who are like, okay, we just want to live our lives. And I'm kind of repeating people who've talked to me who are actually trans. We just want to live our lives. We don't want a bunch of hate. We don't want to step on other people's right to express themselves. I know some very libertarian trans folks, like live and let live, seriously. And so everybody will like look at that and say, oh, there are a bunch of people who want to control me or shove their ideology down my throat. It's just real people trying to live their lives. So maybe in the end, the activist stuff will be good, but the problem is that once it gets instituted, like you said, tune in, drop out. Yeah, the thing that bothers me is when the institutions start to institute that stuff. All right, Matthew Morton, live free or die with a boner. Maybe I shouldn't repeat the words that are filtered. Maybe I should just click that thing and not repeat it. All right, Michael, you guys are just having your own conversation. I feel like some sort of jazz singer. you know, or some like really like pathetic, like, well, not pathetic in a bad way, but just kind of like pathetic stand-up comedian. Not the kind that you just like watch and cringe and you're like, oh God, stop talking. But somebody's like, well, he's not bad, but he's not getting in the way of me like learning about you. Maybe that's what's going on in these comments. Oh, James Marley, I'm not going to say this. All right. All right. Anyways, I love that you guys. I love that I'm like the part of a community, but I'm just in the corner, and you guys have your own community. That's the great thing about like these meetups. Is like I'm gonna be over here, and like the people who like want to talk to me, but other people just talk to themselves. Like, oh, okay, I don't have to be on the spot the whole time. My job is simply to ramble. I think I already told this story. I think I'd already told this story about just talking. That's my job, is just to talk. You the low-key MC. Yes, we are. I want to look at how choppy I am. It doesn't look so bad. I wonder why this is so choppy. I have pretty solid internet. Is it Google's fault? I don't know. I don't know whose fault it is. But let's set up the desktop. What do you guys want? What do you guys want me to talk about, Zach Fritz? Korea, one. Boyce, do not know what's up with Alsvoid. Oh, yeah, I know. I miss Alsvoid so much. She's so cool. Don't read that wrong. She is painting her very frail and yet meaty frame up, painting like 1,000 houses. She's decided to like pay off grad school in like 8 so she's in the middle of nowhere with painting houses, and by painting houses I mean scraping the paint off houses and then putting the paint back on houses. And she didn't want to deal with hiring other people. She's doing it all on her own, and so she's just a mad woman. She's an absolute mad woman. So I contacted her the other day. I haven't heard back. Hopefully she's doing okay. Hopefully she doesn't have that tendonitis at the back or something like that. Robin D'Angelo, Rib Rot Gut. Why are you bringing up Robin D'Angelo? Why are you bringing up Robin D'Angelo? Oh, Robin D'Angelo. Did you guys see my Robin D'Angelo? She needs to be challenged on her new tour. She's on a tour. I would love to see Robin D'Angelo talk with one of the people that I know. I would like to see that. Man, Robin D'Angelo, she gets under my skin. Again, I'll say this. I don't know if you guys watched my episode on Robin D'Angelo, but she is a grade A rhetorician. She knows how to manipulate thought processes like nobody's business. She's like one of those people. She's a sophist. She's one of those people back in Plato times. Plato's like, truth is important. Reality's real. And Aristotle's like, no, really. Observation and experience are important because that's the only way we should know that we're going to be able to know about reality, right? So like truth, whatever, it's experience, whatever, you know, I'm going to truncate that and stuff. But like then there's people that's like come in and say, you guys are both totally wrong. The only thing that's real is not truth or power, but feeling. That's the only thing that's real. That's the only thing that's real with people is feeling. Truth and reality don't matter. And you know what? You know what I want to say, Robin D'Angelo? What you preach is what led to the Evergreen protests. I mean, okay, yeah, it was a failure. It was a complete systematic failure. But it was your ideology that allowed these young people who were not trained to think out loud or to do really heavy processing of their environment and to doubt what's going on. Once they were given that ideology, that took them over and it shut them up. If they were white, they followed. If they were not white, they led. And there was a cliff there. Nobody knew about the cliff. They thought the cliff was heaven. They thought, we're going to jump off of here and we're going to be in the high times, the land of all living, bounteous, non-oppression flows of perfect redistribution of power and ownership of all of our labor coming out of our caves or whatever. That was a joke that came out wrong. But anyways, they didn't see the cliff there because they didn't need to see the cliff there because they were taken up in this non-reality reality, this totally power trip reality. That's what Robin D'Angelo, in a very exquisite, very masterful, absolute props to her. Absolute props to her. She deserves all the money she's getting and all of the fault for the destruction that she is reaping upon our planet for her exquisitely designed and crafted things, whatever they are. Things. You guys didn't see that. Things. Yeah, enough about Robin. Karaya won. Everyone is wrong. Nobody's right. Hemdall's Gate. It makes me sad. Farley Moab. I'm right. I'm just coming into a conversation. I don't know what's going on. Gagamba. Hi, Ben. Is this being streamed from outer space? Am I floating? Are we really that choppy? Do I really want to look at that? Seekman. Let's see, man has to ask women for sex. If she says yes, he is no better off than when he started. If she says no, he automatically raped her just for asking, pressuring her. I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is really dangerous. Like there's pros at this game, of this live streaming game, and they're not as choppy as me, for one. Two, they don't have awesome cats that I have, but they come up with all this material, like, okay, we're gonna go through all this material, we're gonna read through these articles. I didn't even do that. I feel so bad. I feel like I'm wasting everybody's time, even though we're having such a good freaking time. Because we're just hanging out on our computers. Jack Fritz, I will keep copy pasting until you see this question, Benjamin. Ben, did you hear the terrible backing of Trump did when he got back to the U.S. about how Russia meddled with our backpedaling? Did I hear the terrible backpedaling Trump did, or backing up Trump did when he got back? I don't understand the question, and I haven't heard about that. I've seen some things, but I've been transcribing crap. Why does a woman have to feel good? Okay, you guys are talking about women. I don't want to talk about women. And I'm not sure there are any women in the audience because I really dearly respect women. They're my best friends, usually. Usually. Michael, it is. Improvement is a daily activity. Can somebody ask me a question so I don't just like read comments until I say something that I didn't mean and then I get taken out of context? Jesus Christ. I'm playing with fire. I'm like I am riding on the cliff here. At any moment I can say something that can completely decimate where I'm trying to go with this whole YouTube channel. You guys want to know where I want to go? I want to interview Jonathan Haidt. That is the height that I'm aiming for right now. Hate. No, not hate, but height, or hate, but not hateful. The loving man, hate, height, whatever. Jonathan, our righteous mind or the righteous mind. He's my goal. I'm collecting interviews. I'm figuring out how to listen to people in a way that like really makes them feel like they are the king of the world, and yet are informing and are being interacted with in a great positive manner. I want Haidt on my show. That's what I want. So I'm trying to organize interviews for people of higher and higher awesomeness. No, actually, everybody I've interviewed is pretty awesome. Everybody's interviews is pretty awesome. I mean, they're not for everybody, but anyways, that's my goal for this channel. That's my goal. That and figuring out how to move on from this evergreen stuff. Though there's more evergreen stuff to do, so stay tuned. Don't hang up the channel. What is the first change I would make at the Evergreen State College? Tim Riley asks. The first change I would, the thing is I don't know, man. I know too much about it. I mean, we can go in there and make sweeping changes, but that's the problem that George had. One, I would have a seminar. I would start having lectures and panels of people with different views come in and talk about the nuances of their views. That's what I would do. I wouldn't deal with all that administration stuff or the change stuff. I would just get people that come there. And I think that right now would be the time to do that. I think because Evergreen is such a story now, it pops up in all these news articles and stuff. I think that a lot of people would be interested to going there and talking. I think a lot of intellectuals would show up and talk across different and actually model whatever Evergreen's main foci, one of their goals, to speak across difference. None of that happened. There was all the different opinions were over here, just talking to each other. There's only one opinion. It was right here, and it was the right opinion, right? And if you're wrong, well, Western civilization, privilege, right? So we need to get. That's what we need. That's what we need. Farley. I came up with a driving song today, but I didn't memorize it before this live stream. And I feel like I'm on the radio, so I should just keep on talking. But I'm not going to read my freaking literature. Let's see what Nietzsche has to say. Let's see what Nietzsche has to say. I'm randomly opening onto Beyond Good and Evil. We're going to try to find a little chunk here. Uh-oh. I found a chunk. It's about a page. Maybe we should find a half a page. See what Nietzsche says. Okay. This is 273 from Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil, translated by Adrian Del Caro. 273. Someone who strives for greatness regards everyone he meets on his way either as a means or as a delay, an obstacle, or as a temporary place to rest. His unique and superior graciousness toward fellow human beings is only possible when he is at his height and he rules. This is a really big problem with Nietzsche. Impatience and his consciousness that until such time he is always condemned to comedy. Impatience and his consciousness that until such time he is always condemned to comedy. Since even war is a comedy and conceals the end like every means, ruins any company for him. Impatience and consciousness that until such time as he is always condemned to comedy, ruins any company for him. This kind of human being knows solitude and what is most poisonous about it. Now, the problem with Nietzsche, Nietzsche was my evergreen state college. When I was 20, this is what I filled my head with. And I but I was filled with Nietzsche. And the problem with Nietzsche is that, well, one, don't trust him, but he is speaking of the self, but he's always speaking of the highest self. So yeah, I totally agree. Someone who strives for greatness regards everyone he meets on his way either as a means or as a delay, an obstacle, or else a place to rest. And what I take that as is that you strive for greatness. You have to define greatness on your own terms, right? But you strive for greatness. I'll show you the greatness that I'm striving for, right? So you strive for greatness. There's a few other books here. Yeah, there we go. There's a couple other books. So this is me. This is like my life's work, right? It's like these 8 books that I wrote, not Nietzsche. But like I strove for greatness. I wrote and wrote and I 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 wrote. And I hated it. I hated every single piece of literature I made because it's not good enough, right? So I kept on striving for greatness. But yeah, everything became an obstacle for that. Everything I stopped being here because I was being in my striving. I was projecting my striving. And so to get back to Nietzsche, I think there might be a warning in here we can suss out, but you have to be really careful when you start to get into Nietzsche, especially when you're young and egotistical. All that talk of greatness is going to go into your head. But greatness, true greatness, I believe, is accidental. True greatness is something that happens to the one who has attenuated themselves and trained themselves in such a manner as to funnel greatness into here. But that greatness doesn't, if it's not connecting with other people. That's the reality that we live in. So the greatness has to be in relationship with other people, or, you know, with humanity at large, right? And in the case of like inventing something that like actually changes the lives of other people, right? So you see this. You see the problem with this is that, yeah, if you're truly striving for greatness, you will become such a person as you're always going to be annoyed or needing people simply as means to the end of greatness. And maybe the greatness, there's a chance that your greatness, your achievement, your ultimate goal will actually be a net positive for humanity, and in a sense pay for the fact that you weren't really human while you were doing that. And by human, you weren't really acting with human in the moment because you're trying to act with them out there in that super moment, in that historical perspective. And Nietzsche goes through this. Nietzsche is he's constantly cut off from other human beings. He did not have a good life and stuff. But insofar as you actually do something great, maybe that pays for all the pain and suffering that you inflicted, or all that devaluation of the here and now of people, which is ironic because Nietzsche is all about the eternal return, the here and now, right? But he's always talking about that greatness. So maybe it pays for it, but That's very, 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 very rare. And the thing about being young is that you don't understand that, yeah, you are immortal, but you're only immortal for a very temporary time, right? That's something that you don't really realize. I mean, I had that thought when I was young. I was feeling immortal. I was feeling very immortal, but I at least had the perspective. This is probably the only wisdom I have is like, I'm only immortal right now. I'm only immortal right now. So I have to maximize this immortality. But anyways, to get back to my original point, everybody acted like that they were trying to achieve this greatness. It's just only very few people are going to achieve that. So you need to be a lot more humble than Nietzsche. That's the problem with Nietzsche, is that he's anti-humility. He's very anti-humility, and so he's kind of like this. He's a little radioactive. You have to put him and surround him with a bunch of water and then deal with the heat over here. You need to have something between that philosophy and your reality in order for you not to get burned. Bam! That's it. That's it. Zach Fritz, Ben, I believe luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Luck or accident? Luck. I'm talking about inspiration. I'm talking about like that startling riposte. And that's probably why I wrote so much and I haven't published anything, because I only care about probably, like 1% of everything I wrote. I want out there, but none of that makes any sense with all the rest of it. So I have to allow things that like that luck. That luck is it's the marshmallows and the charms, right? Or it's the charms and the luckies, right? But I mean, I guess I'm American, so I want half of it to be marshmallows. I want half of everything I eat to be pure, raw, powdery sugar candy stuff that you just like, you separate out and you eat all the boring, crunchy stuff. And then you get to like that layer of like bobbing little charms. And you're like, now this is the time where I devour the greatness, right? But do you think that makes sense? I don't know. Somebody who's very private just texted me saying that they're watching, so I'm going to raise my beer to you. Happy you. Sorry, I was at work when he called. Anyways, Crack Rock. Could somebody ask me a question? But I can't just wait for you guys to ask me a question. I have to keep on rambling. And then I look away from the screen because I'm rambling, and then I miss the one question that somebody asked. And if you ask me anything about contemporary politics, I'm not going to know anything. I don't know what's happening in the world. I read a lot of Twitter, but usually what I read is about what other people have written. I was thinking, I had a thought today. I wanted to share a thought. I was thinking that these live streams are for all my miscellaneous thought. I had a thought. I enjoy reading the writing, or I enjoy the articles that are a takedown of like those shame articles. There's that word. I'm sorry. There's that word for a hit piece, right? Like, so there's a hit piece over here against whatever celebrity, right? I was reading, I didn't read it, but there was one about Elon Musk, right? Tesla dude, SpaceX, whatever, right? And it was just like this hit piece on him and like his behavior about the tie thing. And then he called somebody a pedo, right? And I don't want to read that hate. I don't want to read the hit pieces, but I really do enjoy reading the breakdown of the hit pieces, the stuff that counters the hit pieces. And the counter to the hit piece isn't a hit piece itself. That's where the actual good story is. It's like, okay. And especially the guy who wrote this thing on Elon Musk, he's like, yeah, okay, Elon did mess up, but let's look at the criticism. And of course it's cherry picked because you can't go through. You have to cherry pick things. That's not a criticism. Somebody accused me of cherry picking things. Like, of course I'm going to do. If I didn't do that, you would just have this live stream of me creating everything and going through all the videos to get to the stuff that people actually want to watch, of course. But anyways, so somebody just took criticisms of Elon and then countered them and showed him in a better light, but then like actually like allowed him to be faulty. Allowed a human being to be faulty. That's what I love. It's like, okay, look at this human being is striving a lot. And here's this flaw, right? The hit piece just says, there's this human being, forget about all the work they did. Look at their flaw. Like, okay, like that's too much for me. But I like to see a human being with a flaw, but overstanding the flaw, having that flaw, but working around that flaw, dealing with that flaw, admitting that flaw, having that flaw. It's wonderful. But a human being that's all flawed is just as boring as a human being that's all freaking perfect. That's just pure, like, probably Western, narrative prejudice on my account, probably dating back to the Iliad or something. I forgot what I was doing. Okay, Justineri in Brooks. What do your friends think about you doing this? Have you had much criticism for your views which question the popular narrative? Have I had much criticism for my views which question the popular narrative? I am very, very, very small. I am very early in this whole YouTube thing. I have not actually, other than just like trolls, I haven't really received criticism. I have received criticism for the Robin DiAngelo piece, and that's interesting. And I'm always kind of disappointed in the criticism that I received from the Robin DiAngelo piece, because I specifically say what white fragility is. It's this perfectly designed rhetorical maneuver that nobody can recover from. You can never defend yourself against white fragility. Any move to defend yourself against white fragility is proof that you're fragilely white or whatever, right? It's like, it's perfectly designed. And then I have people coming on like, this is the perfect example of white fragility, what you're doing, criticizing her. And da da da. You know how much time and research people pumped into what she's talking about? Like, these are professionals. These are professionals. They're published. Yeah, and they're published by each other. And they're peer reviewed by each other. It's a complete cabal. It's complete cabal. Just because like so much energy and money and time was spent, it's like, just because, like, you know how hard, I'm not going to bring up the Nazis. Let's think of something other than the Nazis. Do you know how hard, do you know how hard Zack Snyder worked on Batman versus Superman? He worked really, really hard. There was a lot of time and money put into that thing. It still turned out to be bad, right? It has no bearing. Like, all that energy and work does not have any bearing on the final product. So anyways, like, I'm just disappointed in that. But to get back to your question, I don't have many friends except for you guys. And the friends that I have, I've pretty much met through doing this. And the friends that I have retained are the ones who agree with me. The ones that, well, I have a lot of friends in Portland who I'm pretty sure think I'm a little off the rocker. I've bitten that bad proctor for the gambling of on the wrong side of history thing, but nobody's ever really come after me. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why that is. Michael, how do I rate my hygiene level? That's a pretty poor question, Michael. My hygiene level. I brush my teeth about 3 times a day. I know it doesn't look like that, but whatever. I own that. I own my flaw. I'm a human being with a flaw. It's my dentistry. I shower about every morning, just about. And I drive something that's very air conditioned. So I don't do a lot of physical labor. But when it's hot like this, you know what? My cats are my friends, and they don't give a flying leap about the Evergreen State College or what, is happening in the intersectional verse. They don't care. They don't care. What do you guys think? I have a question for you. What do you guys think? I interviewed somebody today, or maybe it was a conversation yesterday, but somebody I was talking to very recently said that this stuff is going to blow over. Like, this whole intersectionality stuff and white supremacy stuff and all this stuff is going to blow over. All this privilege stuff and cultural appropriation stuff, it's all going to blow over. And yeah, it was the guy I interviewed today, and he talked about how, in the 60s there was the hippies, and like they had the moral authority because there was actually a war going on. But when they didn't actually change the war, or when the war was taken care of or cast in a different light, they no longer had the moral authority anymore. But their only power in the world was to be a protester. So they ended up becoming a bunch of narcissists, and then they were really hated on. And then in the 70s, you see in culture this blue collar revolution. a renaissance where just like the normal hardworking people, they were represented in popular film, and they given kudos, and they consumed their own, you know, art and stuff. Then later on in the interview, I'll publish it so you guys can see this all. Later on, he says that any given culture needs to have capital. So if we don't have a middle class, if we don't have a working class, there's like 3 million jobs or some crazy amount of jobs of people actually maintaining reality that nobody in America wants to do. Nobody in America wants to maintain reality. And that's probably our strength. We're not good at maintaining. And there are a lot of, and I'm sure a lot of people, you are like really into that. I think we're tilted though. I think overall we're tilted toward changing reality in some way. And there's 2 ways to change reality. You go back and you change what is, or you find what isn't yet, right? And because most people can't exist in the what isn't yet, they want to change reality, right? But if you actually really want to change reality and like this is what it is, then you maintain reality. You get a mastery of how reality is maintained, talking about social reality, and then you start to tweak it, right? And you see how it all operates and stuff. And I think there's just a lot of people right now that are trying to take the shortcut, or they're the people that are getting the press. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who just like, you know, you don't hear about the 80 to 90%, or probably 95% of evergreen students who were just finishing up their courses. You guys don't think about those students. You don't see them. You don't know them. I mean, other than the people that I have on my show, or me possibly, or like maybe there's some other media out there of the people that didn't participate in the protest, but most people didn't, because they were just trying to figure out how to go into the world and interact with it how it is. I'm going to take a break. Working class zero. I'm 35 now. Cheers. So I can get a good amount of down-to-earth culture. So I can get a good amount of down-to-earth culture is shit changes. I think there's a missing comma in there, or I'm not conceiving it, but I think I get your point. A good amount of down-to-earth culture is shit changes. No, shit definitely changes. Shit will change on its own, naturally. But if you want to change the world, how do you do that? That's the question. If you really want to change the world, how do you do it? I mean, I had a dream in my crazy moment of life before this thing came in to screw up me and make me all like, what the fuck are you doing? Slow down so you don't die, you know, which really got in my way, my greatness. Thanks a lot, Nietzsche. You know, I had this idea of a new way of telling stories. I had this idea. It was totally impossible. And for the next 20 years, that's all I did, was try to work out that idea. I had that idea, but I wasn't going around telling other people what to do, because nobody else could see what I wanted them to do. I had to go and see how impossible it was on my own. I had to do that on my own. And maybe that was for the better, maybe for the worse. Maybe my life would be in a completely different spot. Certainly it would, if I decided to focus my efforts on something that was actually important to people here and now, like the freaking internet was just going on. You know, I'd be a lot different if I knew about the internet, you know, back then, or if that's where I focused my attention. But I did it in this dead art form called literature. Not to diss literature. I love it. It's the most important thing to me. Anyways, how's my audio? I don't look like I'm, it looks like I'm cutting. That's really sad at the end of these live streams. You go back to the end of the live stream and you see that you're cutting or whatever. You're like crinkly when you raise your voice, like when you wake Karen Strawn up from her nap because she decided to listen to you and you're so sad. I don't think she ever watches me anymore. I think she's in freaking Europe or going to Europe. She's Canadian. You never know what they're up to. Building decks, going to Europe. Anyways, I wonder if I have any people who watch me who are in Germany, because I'm going to Germany at the end of the month for about 10 days. Severely drunk. That's a really boring. Drunk stories are not funny or fun, you know? I'll say this one thing about intoxicants. This will be my one intoxicant story. I should talk about my cocaine days, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about my experimenting with drugs days, not the experimenting with cocaine days. We're not going to talk about that. But I'm just going to tell this about like alcohol versus marijuana. Okay, marijuana will completely derail your long-term thinking. For me, marijuana, it front loads all the pleasure right in the moment. So I have all my thoughts and then I don't have thoughts anymore. It's like, well, all right. But the worst thing that I ever did on marijuana, the worst thing that I ever did to reality on marijuana was I bought way too much food. I spent like $250, and this is like $1996. Yeah, on Jewel Osco Groceries, which is like the Fred Meyer of Chicago. I don't know where you guys are from. You probably don't even know what Fred Meyer is, but it's like it's Safeway or whatever. So I went into there. I was stoned out of my mind, totally stoned. I went around. I bought all this kind of meat. Bought a lot of meat and like candles. That's like mostly what I got: meat and candles, and then like other things because you have to. Man doesn't live on meat and candles alone, so you just get a bunch of miscellaneous stuff. And I go out there, I just like buy all this stuff. I'm totally stoned on my gourd. And I was borrowing my roommate's car. It was like this big long station wagon. And I go up to the station wagon and the side door doesn't work. I'm like, huh. And the key's not working. I'm like, this is weird. But the back hatch works. So I load up everything into the car and I get everything loaded. And I notice that there's this car seat in the back seat. Like there's this baby car seat in the car. And I'm like, my friend does not have a baby. We don't have a baby. None of us have babies. You know, it was back in the time when I lived with a lot of people. This isn't his car. I'm like, oh shit, this is not. I turn around and his car's right there. It's like basically the same car, and it's nighttime, right? But I'm like, oh crap, you know. So I start taking all the groceries out, and then like this woman and her daughter like kind of come up, you know. They're looking at me like because it's Chicago. I mean, I don't blame her. They're like, I'm laughing. I'm so sorry. That's my car. I'm so sorry. That was the wrong car. It was the wrong car. So that was the worst thing I ever did in reality on marijuana. The worst thing I ever did in reality on tequila was put my body into the wrong woman's body. Right. So that's just like that's how the brain functions on these two drugs. Right. You both put things in the wrong places, but there's something slightly more severe. Though, I mean, conceivably, I could have been shot for like putting groceries into for putting my body in the wrong person's body. So that's extemporaneous. You can get shot on any drug. You know, drugs will mess you up no matter what, and people will shoot you no matter what. You know, it's just a different type of messing up, but it's always the same kind of getting shot. Well, I mean, you know, there's different. My friend probably would yell at me afterwards for saying that there's only one kind of shot. Anyhow, let's wrap this up, guys. How long have I been doing this? Watch what I say, man. Working class zero. Dude, you're working class. I was just singing your praises. Staying alive, staying alive. There's 61 of you lovely people on here with us. All together. Chatting away. This is weird. I'm gonna keep on doing these things once a week. I should probably up my game if I want to be better at my game, right? Cheers, working class zero. Why Germany? I'm going to Germany. Why Germany? All right, my spiritual group thing, which is a non-denominational, non-doctrinal spiritual exercise. It's called Subud. Anyways, Subud is having their 15th National Congress, which is like the meeting of all the people from all over the world. And it's happening in Freiburg in Germany, and at the end of July till the mid of August. So I'm going to go and meet a bunch of people and do some video work there. So I'm thinking about like just producing a bunch of videos and releasing them, but I'll probably just try to do a couple live streams while I'm out there just to keep you guys aware that I'm something to be aware of. By the way, YouTube keeps on unsubscribing people from my channel, but I think that's a system-wide thing. So if you're unsubscribed to me, or if you don't hear from me for a while, check back in because I am quite more prolific than I probably need to be. I produce probably on average about three videos a week for the last year. So if you don't hear from me and you're wondering where Ben is, it's probably because something the algorithm unsubscribed you. It's just like a cult space battleship, except it's not. It's not. It's not. But I mean, I'm not going to get in that argument. That it's not something that's like that. A cult is something else. I know what a cult is. We can get in a long conversation about this. This is not even a religion. Anyways, we're not going to get into that because I would actually have to talk to somebody else about this in the moment. Anyways. Yeah, I like the small audience thing. It's pretty cozy in here, isn't it? You know what, guys? Matt Christensen is interested in letting me interview him. So in August, I'll have Matt Christensen on the show, which is great, right? I want to talk to him about how his viewpoint has changed. I'm really interested in starting to investigate specifically people's story about changes of heart, or like the process of going from one view of the world to another. And I guess, I was thinking about this today, and I'm like, oh, this is just freaking red pilling, right? Like, I want your red pill moment. I'm like, no, I really hate that term. I hate any term that like has like one meaning. It's like, no, I want that transition from one way of viewing things to another. That's kind of what I want to start building my interviews around, because I think that's the story. That's a human plot arc. That's the arc of the covenant of what it is to be a self. The awesome thing about being a self, even if it gets in your way, you learn to manage it. Sorry. You learn to manage yourself, or yourself changes and you notice that about yourself. So reality isn't really about yourself. It's about watching yourself. And I don't know who does the watching. I mean, who watches the watchers, right? It's the super self. It's the Roy or something like that we can name some funky word, like the genioplasticity of the recidivist organ collectors or something like that, like scrunch it down into a little acronymic integer of parlaying ciphers back and forth between one another, so we understand in a globulous way what the other one's represented by their chambers of absolute definition in rows of unorderly matchsticks and other little balloon-shaped creatures that hop from one diode to another and explode with little sporous creatules that then rain down upon your mandibles, and then get to manipulability with that obstruction originating from your envelope. The perceiver self, I like that. You're probably right, Michael. Matt is cool. Matt is cool. I'm drinking something now. Oh, question, podcasts. Should I put my interviews on podcasts? I mean, I know I should. Are you guys interested? Do you think that's a good idea? Should I figure out how to do that and do the work to put them all in podcasts? I guess I should. I mean, it's just more media. I mean, it's more time, but once I do it and get it all set up, then I just press another button. So I should probably do that, right? What do you guys think? Oh, Pinochet. I just did my rambly bamble. Okay, yeah. Click the bell. Click the bell. You're probably not watching me if you haven't been subscribed. Is there anybody who's just like stumbled on this, like hasn't subscribed? That would be really weird. But I guess it happens because there's 55 of you. Black Knight Fool podcast. Okay. I guess so. Yeah. Is SoundCloud good? I mean, I put a lot of my music on there, but I haven't used it and I don't want to pay for it. But if they actually, there's a return on investment, then I would pay for that. If that's good. I mean, Google can set me up in iTunes. Like there's a way to get on Amazon to get up into iTunes. I know we're talking technical. I'm going to wrap up pretty soon. But if you guys think that SoundCloud's the right way, maybe I'll ask Matt or somebody else who does that. Oh, hey, Thomas, how you doing, man? It's good to meet you in Portland. Okay. Yeah, does anybody listen to podcasts through the iTunes app? This is research. I'm boring. I should probably get off. French. This feels like something philosophical, French. I'm going to read this out loud. I hope I'm not wrong. French. All life as we know it has lived within the same eggshell of the atmosphere, on a floating molten ball of iron, in a vast expanse of nothingness, since the beginning of life as we know it. That is freaking trippy, man. Did you guys ever read The Selfish Gene? I can understand why people believe in atheism reading that. I mean, that's a great like freaking like book of Genesis for the atheist community. It's fabulous. That really screwed up my way of thinking. I'm still trying to digest that way of thinking. But anyways, I still don't believe it. I don't believe that. I don't know. Brett has these ways of speaking about things. Maybe he'll get it through my head how it works, but I don't think you can be an atheist. I think the closest thing you can be to an atheist is an autotheist. And what I mean by that is that You still have to believe that there is a force, that there is a supernumeral force, or supernumerate, no, wrong word. The supernal force that is acting out whatever is being acted out. There's something that's being acted out, right? And that thing is that thing. The thing is the thing. Theist, right? Theist, the thing. Theism, the theos, the God. Now, whether you want to personify that God and face that God and name that God, that would be theism. The way of orienting yourself to that thing would be in theism. The way of saying that thing is not a thing doesn't make sense. So you say that that thing isn't a thing insofar as we would think of that thing being a thing, right? That thing is not like us. To project ourselves onto that thing is improper. It's not real. We have to look at the thing as it is. So you strip out the theism, but I think you eventually get down to autotheism. It's self-emergent, right? It's not that there's no thing. And I know I'm playing with the words in a way that kind of denigrates the atheistic position as somebody who wants to, I don't know, whatever atheists think. I'm sure there's some people who want to rid the world of religion or think the bypass it or don't even need it, don't even use it. But I think that eventually if you don't have a God, you still have a God somewhere. Either you make your intellect a God, there's some sort of controlling governing force. And I think that the cleanest way of getting to that without naming it as a theist would be autotheism and noticing the manifestation, like more along the lines of a will to power, right? There's this will, but this is probably something I should have a discussion with somebody else about, not people who are squished into these little tiny boxes of word types, things. Ooh, I like that Russian. I don't even know how to. God is year in Russian. God is dead? I don't know. It doesn't matter if God's dead, he's reborn because we still exist. So whatever it is, we don't need to get down that weird like phraseology land of like either you're into it and you want to go down that path or you're not into it and you want to go down another path. And I don't think arguing about going down that path is very fruitful insofar as when you go down a religious path, it doesn't turn you into an asshole. That's the only thing that we should be talking about. But everybody's can turn into an asshole. Like the reality is that we're all good and evil and we all have to manage that. We need other people interacting with other people to keep us awake. Your Highness in Korean, kaka, kaka. Thoughts on higher power stream. Okay, let's name that. Thoughts on higher power stream. And I'm giving you guys a 5-minute warning on this live stream that has lasted however long this live stream's lasted. I don't know. You know? Do you know? Should we know? Should we ask? I'm going to look at this chat thing, but all my windows are in the wrong position now. Oh, wait. I have to save that thing, and then you guys are in the past, or I'm in the past for you. I'm in the present for myself, but there's this gap between what you see and what I see, what I'm doing. Oh, just like the Patria says, God of the gaps is eternal. In between. Oh, this isn't, okay, Working Class Zero, now I have to rename it. Oh, okay, well, it's still the purposeless recidivism of a Western cello junkie. We'll keep that there. I'll probably keep this up tonight and then shelve it somewhere. Make it private so you guys can see the comments if you made any comments. But anyhow, 5 minutes. Give me something weird to think about. Sikh men, atheists don't believe in a higher power. They believe in a lower power. Liars, fraud, superstition, a moral system created by scam artists. That's interesting. I would like to unpack that. But I would just have to say, at the beginning of the statement, you say atheists as if they're one entity. And I don't think that that's true. I think that there's a lot of people with a lot of different angles on it. But I do like what you think about believing in a lower power. And I do think that atheism or scientific atheism is focused down. It's focused on what we can look down on, because that's the only thing we can be sure of is what we can look down on, because we can overstand it. We can manipulate it. We can experience it. We can deal with it. The stuff that's higher than us or more subtle, let's say, or more complex than what we are, like how do you actually interact with that? I think you would have to wait for the accident to happen for you to experience that, or organize your life in a way that you have a space set aside for that which is higher than you, or more complex than you, more subtle than you, to pay attention to. But you would have to quiet yourself down. You would have to stop looking in order to see that which is, higher than your sight. Seriously. That kind of made sense, but I'm not going to unpack it. But I think the atheist looks at what we can control, and I think that's a smart way to do it. I think atheism, it's smart. It's very smart. It's very smart. I don't denigrate that. I just think that there's always going to be a God somewhere, and whether or not you can talk about it in one way or another, you're going to talk about it in some way. There's always going to be something postulated as existing. Genetic flotsam, rather a comparison. You know what? I wonder if I'm going to disagree with people. I'm really looking forward actually to seeing how people disagree with me, or point out how I was wrong or mischaracterizing people, or like just pointing out problems they have with my argument. It'd be interesting. This is another conversation, religion, sex, and politics. It's one of those things that everybody has something to say about, not necessarily to do. But I want to go up to genetic flotsam, arguing that if you believe in your intellectual fertility, then you believe in God is a pretty radical redefinition of God. Yeah, that's fair. In fact, it's identification of self with God, features Satanism. I can't get into this conversation because I'm going to mince words, and I'm going to need somebody like Poe the person to like really question me, but I don't know if necessarily Poe the person's interested in this kind of conversation. But I need somebody to really slow me down and let me carefully arrange my thoughts on this matter, because I do think that, yes, atheism is Satanism, but Satanism not as in going around tearing off heads or anything like that. It's Satan goes back to the root for the material world, or the shaitans, and in the Islamic Sufi way of looking at reality is that there are different life forces that stack up on top of each other, and the lowest force is Satan, or matter, right? And then on top of that is the vegetable, and then the animal, then the human, the prophetic, and then the angels, and then eventually God. And what Satan is in this conception, how I read this conception, Satan isn't necessarily evil. It's just lower. Like a knife will always cut. A knife is oriented to cut, right? There's nothing wrong with the knife, right? Because it's just a material object. Now, when the knife takes over a human being, or when a human being, somebody with much vaster connectivity and ability to affect the environment, acts solely like an instrument of a knife, right? Then they become a tool of their sharpness. They get taken over by their sharpness, right? So the satanic way of viewing the world is looking at things, breaking them all down into just objects interacting with other objects, right? There's no such thing as a higher order will, or what I term volition. There's just all force. There's not even urge. There's not even urge. Urge is a byproduct of force articulated on a very complex level. It eventually turns into but it's still force. You can reduce it's reductive in a way. But I know I'm entering into territory that I have to be really careful with. But anyways, yeah, in a way, I think and it's very smart to just say we can only believe in that which we can see and observe and test, right? And so always have a tentative sort of belief. I mean, a humble atheist is going to be just awesome of a person as a humility. As long as the God is not your own powers, you're doing something good. And that's why I think that autotheism is more of a conception of reality as something that comes to being on its own, and maybe it's more Buddhist of stripping the what's it when you turn everything into a human being? Anthropomorphism. Yeah, it's tuning down the automatic anthropomorphism that human beings do on anything that we don't necessarily understand, and which we're going to do anyways. Anyways, I should sign off, guys. I know atheism is godlessness, but I still think Louis VII, that there's always going to be a God. And insofar as what I'm defining God is that there's something that is happening. There's something that is happening. Something mighty and great is happening, and we're immersed in it. So whether that thing has a will and a direction or not is the question, but there's that thing. And once you start assigning it a will, that's when you get into trouble. But anyways, je ne parle pas français. I know not to pronounce the S, but maybe I should. Française. Cool dudes. Without the Skylord. You know, I appreciate that battleship. I appreciate you guys hanging out. I appreciate that there's people who can look at these stories and see the morals and not necessarily need to project belief onto something that their belief will never be able to circumscribe to begin with. Anyhow, you guys, later, Ben, how about a talk on your guitar someday? I have not played my guitar in so long, and I only know 5 chords. All right, somebody's flipping off soccer fans over there. You guys are great. You're wonderful. Every one of you guys is wonderful. Send me your thoughts on Twitter at Benjamin A. Boyce. And if you guys want to contact me, that's the best platform. If you guys want to have me talk about anything at all, send me a message, send me a DM. You can write comments down below. And if you want me to do these things with more organization, I can start doing that, though they will be less Ben and more previous Ben. They won't be now Ben. They'll be then Ben if I plan them. Good night.